Today on Rhetor News, Mayor of Racine, Cory Mason, sits down with our very own Lorenzo Santos to discuss the future of Racine and much more.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
We are so happy to have you, Mayor Mason. You received a degree in philosophy from the University of Wisconsin.
I did.
Can you tell us what made you interested in philosophy and also how that impacts your decision making today?
Sure. So I was really privileged to go to the University of Wisconsin-Madison. They have a great philosophy program. I was always actually knew I was going to major in philosophy, even at a young age. Just philosophy is all about asking why the world works the way it does, asking tough questions. I went into it thinking I was going to be able to answer all the world's tough questions, that work really hard at it and come up with answers. I didn't necessarily get all the definitive answers, but it sure taught me how to think critically about the world, really forced me to look at things from different points of view, to question things, and maybe not always get all the answers that I want, but taught me how to ask really good questions, and to be open to other points of view and think critically about the world. And those are all skills that serve anybody well in any profession, but particularly for an elected official who's trying to serve their community. Asking tough questions, seeing other points of view, and having some sympathy for other points of view it's been a great benefit for me as an elected official. But philosophy also spends a lot of time sort of asking questions about why society works the way it does, or how do you create a more just society? What does that look like? Everybody from, Plato to John Dewey earlier in the last century asked a lot of those tough questions. As an elected official, particularly as a mayor, you're tasked with trying to do that in the real world. So having the benefit of some of the best thinkers out there who've been asking those questions for centuries certainly helps you do that.
Do you have any favorites that over the course of your time and even going back to study that you might find yourself drawing on the most inspiration or influence from?
So John Dewey is a big favorite of mine. He was a pragmatist, which was really what I like about him very much, is he was trying to find practical answers to the world's problems of the day. And so his philosophy was very much an applied science. It wasn't just something that existed in a vacuum. He was trying to work out the world's tough problems around education, around social justice, around inequality. And so I really liked the approach that he took, and that it was outcome-based. It wasn't just, I thought about it in theory, and so since it makes sense to me in theory, it'll be fine. Martha Nussbaum is another one. She's a professor at University of Chicago. She's written extensively about the role of social justice and gender and equity in our society. She's a contemporary writer that's been quite influential. But then there's other philosophers like John Stuart Mill, who himself was a member of the English Parliament while he was alive, and so draw some inspiration from him as an elected official who was also a philosopher. But the list goes. There's lots of great traditions to draw from, but those are probably the ones that I draw from the most.
Very good. And so, when we're looking at philosophy, and we're also looking at certain issues that will affect us beyond this moment, and one of those is climate.
Yeah.
And Racine right now is leading in that charge, being one of the signatories of the Paris Climate Accords. Can you tell us about how that positions us as a city and as a community, and what that means going forward?
Sure. Well, it raises a number of really important ethical questions for every community, right? We all have to do our part. We have a responsibility to the broader planet to make sure that the world that our children and our grandchildren will inherit will still be every bit as viable as the one that we were privileged to take on. And it asks ethical questions about, what's a sustainable approach to moving forward, but also what's our responsibility to each other and everybody doing their fair share. The interesting thing about our national government walking away from it has left mayors to really charge in and lead to fill this breach, since a majority of Americans live in cities. Mayors have really risen to the challenge of stepping in and say, well, even if the national government's not going to lead here, we can still do something very much at the local level. And if cities cumulatively around the country were to do this, we can still have a meaningful impact on making sure that our kids and our grandkids still have a sustainable planet that they can enjoy into the future.
Sure. And you've been, public service is no secret to you. It's not new to you. You've served for a number of years before, even in the assembly. When this seat came open for Mayor of Racine after Mayor John Dicker, what went into that process? What made you seize this moment, or that moment when it was happening, as the time to become, our city's chief executive?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's definitely a different role. It's being a legislator. You're one of 99 in the assembly, versus being the mayor. There's one executive, and the challenges that come with that. I certainly enjoyed being a legislator. I did it for 11 years, so it was a good run at doing it. There's a couple reasons for it. I mean, first of all, at the state level, you get to set broad policy that's sort of 30,000 feet up in the air, right? When you're the mayor, you can still do some of those big policy issues, but it's very tangible, right? Local government is where people meet government services in the real world, right? So, as a legislator, if the garbage didn't get picked up, I never heard about it. But as mayor, if the garbage doesn't get picked up or the streets don't get plowed fast enough, boy, I hear about it, right? It's a simple example of it, but it is where people will encounter government at the most personal and tangible way. And so that creates some great opportunities, some challenges, but some real opportunities that, if you can make a change at the local level and see how it impacts people's lives in the real world and on the ground. So for example, we just did a ban on conversion therapy at the request of our LGBT community. And to hear firsthand the stories of people who'd had to encounter that as part of their youth, and the damage that did, and the concerns about teen suicide, and particularly amongst the LGBT community, and how that process really played a role in that, to be able to lead in that way and take advantage of the opportunity to work with the city council to pass that ordinance, we can see in very real terms what that meant to the local community. And we got to go to the LGBTQ community center and uptown and sign the ordinance into law there. It has a very tangible meaning when you get to do it on the local level.
Right, and as far as those tangible policies and tangible stances that we're taking as a city, are there any other things that might stand out to you that you want to see more traction or movement perhaps on for the future?
Yeah, I mean, there's really three big themes that you'll hear about that I've talked about since being mayor that I'll continue to talk about. First of which is sustainability and our responsibility to each other, to the future, to make sure that our kids inherit a community that's every bit as good as the one that I got to inherit. That really means a lot. And so that touches on climate, but it touches on economic sustainability and a strong middle class and what that all looks like. The other is the work that we've been doing around smart city.
Yes.
So using technology and the built environment of the city itself to really improve the lives of our community, to make it more equitable, livable, sustainable, and workable. Those are all big goals that we share, but really taking the lead on using technology to improve the lives of your citizens is really important. And the third place that I care deeply is around equity and making sure that that everybody, regardless of where they came from or what their nationality is or the color of their skin or who they love or what side of town they live on, that everybody has a great opportunity to use all their God-given talents to succeed. And this is a community that has some inequities. We're not the only community, but we do have real and substantial generational inequities that exist. And so we need to be intentional about how to close those gaps. And as we do Smart City, for example, how do we make sure that that's reducing those gaps and not making them wider? So those are the things that we'll continue to talk about in my tenure as mayor.
Excellent. And in terms of sustainability, you're also working on projects that will perhaps bring outside business and industry, and one of those is expanding Festival Hall. So
right.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So we rolled out a proposal to expand our Festival Hall, to expand the convention center space on the ground floor, and then we would partner with a firm to build a hotel above it. The developer actually, I think, put it best. He said, you sort of did your convention space backwards. Usually you would build meeting rooms and a hotel above it, and then if things were going really well, you'd build a really big convention space. And we sort of built the really big convention space, but we don't really have meeting rooms or a hotel. So this is our opportunity to bring all that together. We hear from people all the time who come to the downtown and will see the historic buildings or North Beach, and they go, oh my gosh, this is a beautiful community. It's a great lakefront. We'd love to do our conference or convention here, and we just don't have the capacity to accommodate people. And so it's a good project that it's scalable and within our means, but certainly something that's achievable, that would help bring lots of people to the community and also create a space that would give the public an amazing view and vista of Lake Michigan that they don't currently have. So we're excited about what that could all mean for the future.
Absolutely. And a lot of people, I don't think they realize there's so much history here.
There is.
And, just the state started here.
Right.
For instance,
Yeah.
one very beautiful thing that I like to remind people of. So it's really exciting to see these projects come into fruition and excited to watch where they go.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is, I'm always mindful of sort of the legacy and the history that we get to build off of, whether it's our abolitionist history around Joshua Glover, whether it's around our manufacturing basis. We once had more patents per capita than any other city in the country, and a long legacy of inventions and manufacturing that was really driven in many ways by the diversity of people who were coming from all over the world to share their experience and know-how, to the innovations that still exist today that I think put us in a great place to build on that smart city experience, because we have people who want that opportunity, who are willing to innovate, who want that good family supporting job. And we're often looking to the future, but in some ways the security that we're looking for is some of that security that we once had in the past when manufacturing, good paying manufacturing jobs were more plentiful, when there was a stronger middle class. So the longing for the past in terms of the economic security that we once better enjoyed is real and substantial. The challenge is to bring those opportunities forward, but acknowledging that it won't look exactly like it did 50 years ago. It'll look like something different. And so how do you reinvent the city for the 21st century? And that's what we're working on by trying to bring all these things together.
Absolutely. And we see your work as a member of the state assembly. We see your work as the mayor of Racine, Wisconsin. Is there any chance that you would ever run for higher office at a later time?
I mean, I would never say never, but I mean, right now I've been the mayor for not quite 2 years. My kids are 10, 8, and 7, and really, the two biggest focuses in my life are being the best possible mayor that I can be for the city of Racine and rebuilding the middle class and building a better community, but also being a good father and a good husband to my family. And one of the advantages to being mayor versus being a legislator is, I went from a 2-hour commute to a 2-mile commute. So the travel time is a lot shorter. So, I really want to do this well. And, I don't know, into the future, who knows? But for right now, I'm really focused on building a better community here as the mayor and getting to enjoy time with my family.
Absolutely. It's good to hear. And one last question we have. This is
Sure.
Definitely goes in the spirit of right now we're seeing superhero movies do fairly well at the box office.
Yeah.
And so, we want to know, if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Oh, wow. It's a great question. There's a lot of great superhero movies out there. My kids are particularly fond of all of them. Picking out one superhero. I mean, I think if you could, so sometimes you get frustrated with how slow government process can take and red tape and what that all looks like. So sometimes it feels slow. So maybe if I had the speed of the Flash, move things along a little bit faster, I guess that might encourage things to go a little bit better. But the superhero movies are great. They allow people to imagine. I love how much more diverse superheroes are getting, so that different groups of people can imagine themselves as a hero and playing different roles, and so that's really exciting. But For my daughters, seeing Wonder Woman and Captain Marvel come out and do extremely well. That's been very exciting. But I think we're all excited about those superheroes. But I will say this about heroes. I mean, we do have police and firefighters and first responders, and those folks are real life heroes, right? I mean, they're running into burning buildings and saving people's lives and literally putting their own lives on the line to protect their communities. So I'm always excited to fantasize about the superpowers that are out there, but I'd be remiss if we didn't also acknowledge the real world heroes that are keeping us safe every day here in the city of Racine.
That's a very good point. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for your time today, Mayor Mason.
No, glad to do it. Thanks for having me.